Oh, hello there! Well, today, welcome back to the channel. We're going to be reviewing... I don't actually know. Mr. MP Monster, the channel's manager, he wouldn't exactly tell me what I was supposed to be reviewing today. He said it would give me a clue, and then he never did.
Heads up! Ooh, you've got to be quicker than that for this game.
Oh, what the hell was that for?
It's your clue.
It's your open invitation for a slap.
Don't you get it?
You're the one who's gonna get it. Get it right in your feckin' throat. Come here.
Okay, I can see we've got off on the wrong foot here. This was a clue to which game you're supposed to review today, that's all.
How is throwing Dizzy at me a clue?
I told you it was a bad clue.
It was a great clue. You just didn't do your part properly.
You threw an egg at me. How is that a clue?
Oh, so close. I didn't throw it. I chucked it. I chuckied an egg.
You used our friend as a missile and gave me a headache.
Me too.
Oh, forget it. Just play Chuckie Egg, will you? Good grief, you tried to inject a little pizzazz into the show and this is what you get for your trouble? It's ridiculous, it really is.
So this is a game where you collect eggs and avoid very large birds. I'm not sure what kind of birds they are, what they're supposed to actually be. I think they're... Well, I'm going to take a guess that they aren't chickens because, well, they dwarf the guy. What do you think, Dizzy?
They're hens.
Really?
Yep. That's why you play as Henhouse Harry. They're hens.
But they're massive.
Maybe Harry is just really small.
The purpose of the game is to collect all the eggs on the level within the allotted time, so that you can progress to the next level. The eggs are arranged on a series of platforms that need to be accessed by either climbing ladders or dropping down from higher platforms. There are 40 unique levels, plus one that is a complete copy of an earlier level, giving 41 levels in total. Each level is progressively more difficult than the last, which gives a very nice difficulty curve to the game. It's a huge amount of fun to play, and I really do enjoy it, regardless of which version I'm playing.
Are all the different versions different to one another?
Yes and no. Let's have a look. This is the BBC version, which is the one that I see the most when this game is discussed online. It's not the original, but it is one of the earliest ports, having been coded soon after the original author Nigel Alderton submitted the game to A&F Software for publishing. The BBC version looks a lot like the ZX Spectrum original, but it plays very differently. There are two variants of Chuckie Egg, the realistic physics variants, such as the one on the BBC, and the unrealistic physics variants, such as the one on the ZX Spectrum.
What's the difference?
Well, the most notable difference is that on the Spectrum version, Harry will bounce off the sides of platforms more if he hits them hard enough, while on the BBC, it's somewhat less.
Does that change the gameplay much?
Surprisingly, yes. Being able to bounce Harry around the level means accessing certain platforms is much easier. On the BBC and other realistic physics variants, you need to plan your route through the level in order to access some of the tricky platforms and grab the eggs before the timer runs out. It's a quite strategic game as a result, but here on the Spectrum, you can ricochet around the level and open up new routes from place to place, which are simply not there in the other versions. I often found myself able to leap from one platform, bounce off the side of another, land on a third platform, and collect an egg in one rapid movement that would otherwise have taken me several precious seconds to reach. Not that there's a lack of bouncing around on the BBC version, of course, but on the Spectrum here, the enhanced bouncy physics means the game is far more fast-paced. Not that time will be a huge factor either way, of course. Alongside the eggs, there are a number of seed piles scattered around each level. The hens will stop to eat these, which can provide you with a much-needed respite from their pursuits if you find yourself in danger of being cornered. However, you can also collect these seeds yourself. picking them up stops the timer for a short period and also gives you some extra points. So if you find yourself in an area where you're actually starting to run out of time, that is a good strategy.
So it's another strategic moment. Either grab the seeds to keep the timer from going down, or leave them to keep the hens distracted while you grab the eggs.
Exactly, yes. At the start of the game, you will have enough time just to grab the seeds as you go, but on the later levels, that extra tactical consideration really does start to come into play.
I really like this game. It seems like a lot of fun, and although the graphics are quite basic, they work well for this kind of early arcade game.
I agree, yeah. Sadly, not all the versions look this nice, however. As with the Amstrad CPC version, the Commodore 64 version was a later port of the game, rather than being coded by the original author or the publishers back at the time when the source material was fresh in their minds. This resulted in the C64 getting a far more colourful and graphically enhanced version of the game. The hens now look more like actual hens rather than ostriches, which is a nice change, but Henhouse Harry really did get the short end of the stick for this one. He's now a squat, Mario-like character with a silly hat, rather than the blocky, Manic Miner style yellow guy with a silly hat that we'd known up until this point. It's not a change that I'm all too happy with, if I'm absolutely honest. Your opinion will, of course, vary depending on which version you grew up with, and graphics don't make the game. It's still a very good port, but for me, this just doesn't look like Harry, and that's a bit of an issue, because it makes the game less enjoyable as a result, since I'm seeing this strange character running around, and he keeps pulling me out of the narrative, out of the game. It's just that little bit of a divide, you know? But whether you love it or hate it, the Commodore 64 sprite isn't anywhere near as bad as this one version that all of us 8-bit fans can rally against. So, prepare yourselves guys, because there's a visual onslaught coming. Here it is. It's time to endure the PC version. Ladies and gentlemen, I present a vision of hell. This is Chuckie Egg on the PC, as you would have seen it if you were lucky enough to have a PC, but unlucky enough to have a CGA display. There are 3 graphics systems supported by the PC version of Chuckie Egg, and I have to say, this is by far the worst. The colour choices are atrocious, and nobody in their right mind would ever wish this horror on even their worst enemies. Atrocious actually doesn't do it justice. So here's the EGA version instead. It's marginally better. Your eyes won't bleed out of your face quite as quickly when you play this version, but it's still not good. For a start, Henhouse Harry now has a tendency to have his face blend into the platforms above him, which is a design choice I can't even begin to fathom. Moreover, the gameplay is bad on both the EGA and CGA versions because the hens and Harry blend into the background, making it more difficult to see where the enemies are and thus increasing your reaction time.
So what's the third graphics option? Is it any better than the others?
I don't know, Dizzy. It's the Tandy graphics option, and it requires a graphics card that's, if I remember correctly, it's very similar to one that was on the PC Junior range of computers. But I don't have a Tandy graphics card accessible to me, and it's very difficult to emulate it properly using DOSBox, unless you know exactly how to set up the configuration files, so I wasn't able to check it out myself.
That's a shame.
Yeah, it really is. However, I will say, given that Tandy and EGA are both 16 colour modes, it's likely that they look pretty similar, so it wouldn't have been that much of an improvement on all things considered. In the end, Chuckie Egg is one of those classic arcade-style computer games that really does need to be played at least once in your life. It's simple to pick up and get into, but its 40 levels, or 41 levels really, mean that you'll be playing for quite a while before you manage to beat it. Now, I won't tell you which version is an absolute must-play because, let's face it, all of the 8-bit versions are well worth your time, and which one you prefer will mostly be down to your personal preferences. For me, it's the BBC version that I come back to most, even though it's very similar to the one on my beloved Amstrad CPC. It's just the one that I grew up with because I played it the most when I was a kid. Well, I enjoyed that. Would you like a go, Dizzy?
No thanks. All that picking up eggs is giving me flashbacks to my first adventure.
Fair enough. Shall we go and teach the monster that it's not right to throw friends at one another?
Let's do it.
Lock and load. If you like the show, please consider supporting me on Patreon. It really does help create future videos. That's patreon.com/Zoe Kirk Robinson. And I've got an extra special thanks going out to Chief89, Tepic, Sam Yates, and Retro Mickey 82. Thank you so much, guys.